Hey guys, this is Cave. I'm a teacher at Roseville Area High School, and I am joined by Nick Paladian Esquire. He's an attorney for the Legal Rights Center in Minneapolis. Welcome back, Nick.
James, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
I want to talk about actually two different things today. There was a request by the defense in the Derek Chauvin murder trial to sequester the jury. Now, the reason the defense asked to sequester the jury is because over the weekend there was I'll just say it, there was another police-involved murder of a young black man in Brooklyn Center. Why would the defense ask for a sequester, and how is that connected with this case?
Yeah, so the reason the defense wants to sequester the jury is to sort of insulate them as much as possible from any exposure to this new incident. Generally, that's what they want. And in addition to that, I believe at least one of the jurors lives in Brooklyn Center. So clearly they're going to be aware of this new killing, right? Big picture, the defense is thinking, hey, whoa, the jury is in a murder case involving a police officer. There's presumably going to be, there is another death at the hands of a police officer, another black man killed by police. The jury might be influenced by that. They might think, hey, you know what? Cops keep doing this. I'm going to convict Derek Chauvin. They might think that, whoa, people, are going to get upset. I'm going to acquit him and, be done with this or get out of here. Whatever influence it might have on the jury, the defense just wants to minimize that as much as possible.
So also, I was wondering, this case is in Hennepin, the trial is in Hennepin County. All the jurists are from Hennepin County. Curfew play into that at all, or not really?
Yeah, I mean, they all got if they have a smartphone, they all got notices on their phone saying, hey, here is the curfew. So even if somebody wasn't checking the news initially, they're probably going to look up, why is there a curfew in place, right? And you and I talked about this earlier. If you turn on any news channel, right, at this point, the jury is still allowed, I believe, to look at the news, right? Judge Cahill said, don't look at news about this case. But if you're on Twitter, if you're on social media, Instagram, CNN, BBC, Fox, whatever, this case has been front and center every day, and adding in another police killing during this case, there's just no way jurors aren't going to see it. So Judge Cahill, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'll let you.
No, so the defense made the motion to do that. Judge Cahill denied the motion. I think his approach was sort of just let sleeping dogs lie. We are gonna keep the jury focused on what's at hand. We're not gonna even sort of bring up or talk about the other incident, because if I bring it up, then it might really stick in their mind. So I'm gonna let it go on as if it's not happening, and hope that does the trick.
So there was a request that the Attorney General take this case. I saw already. Why that? Why would, to get it away from Mike Freeman, or why would the request be already, a couple days later, for the Attorney General to investigate this case?
Right. I mean, off the bat, I think you identified one of the big issues is there's not a lot of trust in the communities, especially communities impacted in these cases, in Mike Freeman or in the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. In this particular case, and I just heard this on the news, so don't quote me on it, but I believe last year, the metro area county attorneys, so I think it's Washington, Hennepin, Ramsey, Dakota, and Anoka, they all agreed that in situations like these, I think when it's with an officer-involved shooting, I think one of the other counties will be taking the case, right? So in this case, ordinarily it would be in Hennepin, but I believe the Washington County Attorney's Office, so Pete Orput, is going to be looking into whether or how to charge it. But even given that, I think the communities impacted most by these are probably not going to have a lot of trust, or are going to have questions of trust regarding the Washington County Attorney's Office or any county attorney's office. So I think the Attorney General's office, especially given that they are the ones prosecuting Derek Chauvin, sort of have a layer of removal I think, from the communities directly. The Attorney General's office usually is not the one prosecuting in communities. Right. And knowing that, Keith Ellison is a liberal former politician, so I think he is more aligned, presumably, with the values of the communities that this is impacting. So I think it goes ultimately down to trust. I think I would not be surprised if Governor Walz chooses to direct Keith Ellison's office to take it over once the case is charged out. I'd have to pull up the statute, but I think that the AG's office can only step in at the invitation of the county attorney who's on the case, or if the case is already charged out, which is the case in Derek Chauvin's case, then the governor has the authority to appoint the AG to it.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yep.
So let's talk about the Daunte Wright murder. I think a lot of people don't understand, or a lot of people are frustrated that, I keep hearing, because he had a deodorizer on his mirror. He had a deodorizer on his mirror. Is that why? I do know that is a law in Minnesota, that you can't have anything hanging from your mirror. Is that why he gets pulled over? Let's talk real here. Let's talk, you're a defense attorney. Is that why?
I don't know, right? I think there
and I know you can't, I know you don't know, but what do you think?
Right.
This is Nick Plotty, my neighbor now. This is Nick Plotty, the guy in the street now. This isn't Esquire.
Yeah, no, my own personal opinion is, again, I don't know, but I think it's very easy to get pulled over, and it's very easy to get pulled over when you're a young person of color. And I could see that playing a factor in here, right? And I think it was his tabs that were expired. I've heard the thing with the mirror, and I've heard it was the tabs. Yes, those are offenses for which you can be stopped, right? Any suspected traffic violation provides reasonable suspicion for officers to pull you over and investigate, right? So and I think there was recently a Court of Appeals opinion that said even if your tires touch the skip line or the shoulder once, they can pull you over for that, right? So it's very easy to get pulled over.
It's really easy to pull over. That's an excuse, right? Yeah. It's not the reason someone gets pulled over. It's the excuse that a 20-year-old black man gets pulled over, right?
Right. And I think a point, you mentioned this earlier off the record, the tab rollouts with COVID. I think there's some delay in those things being rolled out, right? So it could very well be, hey, it's COVID. As long as he's not speeding and it doesn't look like he's drunk driving or doing anything crazy, maybe we just let this go, right? They have the authority to do it. Their reasons for doing it, any potential biases or underlying reasons for doing it. People have bias. Everyone has bias. Police officers absolutely have bias. So it may have played a role. I think one of the officers, interacting was an African-American officer. So I don't know if he's the one who initiated the stop, or if it was the woman who killed him, or if it was the third officer on scene. I don't have that information, but police culture, and we could talk about that a lot in another one. I will say this: I have been pulled over going well in excess of the speed limit, with the car not in my name, and I have been given a warning and sent on my way. Right. So yeah, I'm sort of just talking in circles. To your specific question, I don't know, but was bias at play? Absolutely. I think it always can be, and likely always is at play to some extent. Yes.
All right. Well, I didn't mean to, throw that at you. Let's get back to the facts of what we see. So you can give me your professional Esquire opinion. So we've seen the video now, the body cam footage, and the police officer who did kill Daunte Wright claimed that she thought that she had her taser in her hand as opposed to her firearm. Now, I don't know how much you know, but I've been reading up on this quite a bit. and maybe this is logical, you keep your firearm on your strong side and your taser on the other. The taser is purposely made to not look like your firearm, so you don't confuse it. I guess there's a question in there.
I mean, that's
somewhere.
it, right? Yeah.
So
that's just it.
So anyway, okay, edit. I'm going somewhere with that, but I won't. So we see the shooting.
Right.
What's going to happen to this? What should or most likely will happen to this police officer?
Right. And to your point, I'm just going to step back real quick with knowing the difference between a gun and a taser. This is an officer who has been working as a police officer for 26 years, right? They carry weapons. She has carried weapons, presumably her entire career. She is trained on weapons. They go through regular yearly trainings. Tasers are absolutely made to look differently. If you want, when you're watching the video, or when you watch the video, you can see what the taser that they carry looks like on her, one of her partner's belts. It's yellow, it's bright yellow. It's just a completely different tool, right?
Now, I'm going to cut you off. Earlier, you were telling me you actually counted how long she had the firearm in her hand extended from her body, aimed at Daunte Wright.
Yeah, I counted 8 seconds where you can visibly see the gun in her hand, right? So meaning it's in front of her, and I assume that she can also see what is in front of her body. So it's not like it wasn't an immediate pull and action. It's, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, coming in. Adrenaline, can be a factor, and a crazy situation can be a factor. My human being, non-professional opinion, that doesn't seem like a crazy situation to the point where you would forget that you're holding and carrying a gun, right?
Yeah, I'm not an expert, and I wasn't there, and I could not be there, but it did not feel like an intense emergency to have your gun drawn in the first place, let alone to shoot somebody, in that situation. So let's just say she's found guilty of something. Is I made a mistake an actual defense that someone could use? Let me rephrase. If it goes to trial, is the defense I made a mistake? Does that work?
Potentially, depending on the charge, right? So, this has come up a lot, obviously, since the incident. So what I think and this, we'll see what the Washington County attorney comes out with, and or what the attorney general comes out with. But what I think would be a charge that could very easily fit would also be a second-degree murder charge here, right? And remember, second-degree murder, it's basically the felony murder doctrine, right? As you're saying, you killed somebody unintentionally, you didn't mean to kill them, but you committed a felony, and as a result of you committing that felony, somebody died. So in this case, same as Show. Two very different situations between Daunte Wright and George Floyd situations, but in that instance, this officer, is it Hooper? Brooklyn Center police officer. Potter, thank you. Officer Potter, presumably didn't mean to kill this person, right? Let's say it's true that she did sincerely believe it was her taser, right? Officers are allowed to use force, but that force has to be reasonable, right? That's been the crux of this Derek Chauvin case. And in this situation, using deadly force presumably is not going to be reasonable. And we know that for, I think, common sense, but you can also, off the bat, where she felt it was reasonable to use a taser. She thought she was using a taser. If she didn't mean or intend to use a gun. So I think you can easily get there to say shooting him was not reasonable. That was not an appropriate use of force. Therefore, that was an assault. And assault is what's called a general intent crime, meaning we don't care if you intended to cause that type of harm or if you actually didn't mean to hit them. Basically, as long as you're not having a seizure, you've intended your action. So she did pull out the gun. She did pull the trigger and shoot him. Regardless of if she meant to do that, she did do those things, right? She wasn't having a seizure. So that's assault. And he died. So those things combined get you second-degree murder. So saying I didn't mean to, that would realistically be a jury nullification argument. Sympathy, right? To say, this poor woman, she didn't mean to, she feels horrible, clearly it was an accident, right? They could find her not guilty by using jury nullification. When you're getting into other charges, if you're talking about third-degree murder, or if you're talking about second-degree manslaughter, which are the other two charges that Derek Chauvin is looking at, I think, in my opinion, and some other lawyers might disagree with me, but in my opinion, that's where the waters can get a little muddier, because you have to prove in those that this person acted with that depraved mind, right? Essentially that they were reckless, basically, or manslaughter, that they were culpably negligent. But in all of those, you're basically saying this person knew about a risk, and knowing that there was this risk, they consciously disregarded it, right? So if her defense is, I sincerely thought it was a taser, that could be a defense, because she's saying, I didn't calculate that it would have been a gun, or that maybe I meant to shoot him in the foot, but I shot him in the chest. It's not that calculation. So that's where it might come into play. And in my opinion, I think second-degree murder in both cases is the easiest charge to prove. And I think in her case, much more so than Derek Chauvin's case, I think she would have a better defense to third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter than Derek Chauvin has. But second-degree murder, in my opinion, that's what I think would be a charge that they could and likely will go with.
So one last question. How does Officer Potter's case, let's assume that, there are charges, how does the Officer Noor case connect with this? Like, as a precedent, are they similar? Are they not similar? In fact, let me rephrase. They're similar in some ways and they're dissimilar in other ways. Can you explain how they are similar and how they are dissimilar?
Really good question. Yeah. So factually, it involves shooting somebody when you didn't. Ultimately, if we take her at her word, if we take him at his word, unintentionally shooting somebody, right?
Yep.
From a colloquial standpoint, he didn't mean to shoot and kill Justine Demond. She didn't mean to shoot and kill Daunte Wright, right? In Officer Noor's case, he did intend to grab his pistol. He knew he was grabbing his gun, and he knew he was shooting out the window, right? In her case, again, based on what she has said, she intended to grab a taser and use the taser, right? So she thought she was doing something completely different than what she was doing, versus I think Mohamed Noor did what he intended to do, but it was the who that was different as opposed to the what.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So, third-degree murder for Officer Noor's case is that action saying, hey, that was reckless. You don't know, you intended to shoot whoever was out there, and that was a crazy thing to do. Versus in this case, arguably tasing him legally could be appropriate. Shooting him was not, in my opinion, shooting him likely is not, right?
Okay. So, all right. Well, we're gonna have more to this case, and maybe we'll even do. Unfortunately, we'll have to do another set of vlogcasts, but maybe we'll just stop killing Black people. That would probably be the best. I'd rather not interview you like this so much anymore.
I very much agree.
Okay. All right. Thanks as always, Nick, for your insight. We appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, James.
All right.